Daniel Seraldo with he wants to speak against, and you're with Miami Design Preservation League.
Yes, thank you, Senator and members of the committee. Daniel Seraldo here from Miami Beach, and happy Valentine's Day to everyone. I know I see all of our beautiful historic markers behind us, and I know many of our historic buildings and neighborhoods are celebrating today, and I'm honored to be here to speak on this bill. So the issue has been really kind of honed in on, and I think we all know that it's about this definition of non-conforming. And as was discussed, in the current bill, it says that anything that is not built to today's new construction, which means anything built before today, is automatically non-conforming. We know that the federal government, we know that the National Park Service, we know that local government, and even the state government allows for our historic buildings to be able to be renovated and restored without having to be elevated to the new construction level. And so we believe that the intent of the bill is to focus on unsafe structures ordered to be demolished. And so in the two of the three qualifying cases, we're good with that. It's that non-conforming that we're very concerned about. As an example, in Miami Beach, buildings like the Eden Rock Hotel, where my sister got married, would be considered under this language, non-conforming, and I heard them say unsafe. That is not acceptable to us to call our businesses, our hotels that spend millions of dollars in making sure they're safe to be under this bill as unsafe. So our ask in between now and when it gets to the floor is if we can continue working with all of you. We know the Florida Conservatives for Coastal Preservation have been emailing all of us. There's a lot of concern about the unintended consequences of the bill, and we want to make sure we address that because we cannot call these beautiful places unsafe just because they're not, in my town, a new building's got to start here. My grandma can't get up to it, but it's new construction, that's it. We got to allow our historic buildings, whether St. Augustine, Miami Beach, Palm Beach, Fort Myers, Pensacola, and all around, to be able to, restore and renovate and not be tagged as non-conforming. And I'll wrap up. I wanted to mention an example. The Deauville Hotel in North Beach was left very derelict, and there's press all over about that. And the city of Miami Beach even had to take them to court about it. They've been trying to sell it and resell it and redevelop it, and they have all the right to do that. But to make that the rule and not the exception would lead to a slippery slope, we think. We shouldn't encourage the labeling of these buildings as unsafe and allow the decline of demolition by neglect. Happy to answer any questions. I did want to, though, just say for the
Senator Jones, you have a question? Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Very quickly, and thank you, Daniel, for coming up again this year, because I know we dialogued about this last year, and I know we haven't spoken this year. When you speak of the National Registry, how many buildings that you know of are on the National Registry?
Through the chair. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Senator. And that's a very important point. We've been told at these different committees that there's only 7 in Miami Beach, and we went back and looked, and there's actually 2,200 structures on the National Register of Historic Places federally designated as historic. And so we really want to keep working with the senator, the sponsor. We know in the House we're going to be working on that amendment too, to make sure we're not in violation of the National Preservation Act, certified local government minimum standards.
Follow up.
Yes, Madam Chair, and just my final question. And based off of, considering that the bill is significantly different than it was last year, and based off the email from last year compared to the emails this year, while some of the constituents in Miami Beach have concerns about it, they're saying the same thing that you're making mention of as it pertains to keep working on it. I guess my final question to you would be, based on the current language within the bill, of those 2,200 structures, do you have an idea, or does the advisory board have an idea of how many of those buildings will be affected based off of this particular legislation?
You're recognized.
Through the chair, thank you, Senator, for the question. Yes, and the work that's been done by all of you, and thank you to the sponsor, has minimized the impact of the bill. And so now there are only hundreds of federally designated historic structures at risk. But those hundreds include our hotel district, our resort district, where my grandparents went on their honeymoon, and and my parents too. And so we want to make sure that those are not involved in this, and hopefully there is that continued dialogue. We know it's better than last year, but that doesn't mean that it's ready to go. It's arbitrary currently and maybe challenged if not amended.
Senator Osgood, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Daniel, for coming. This is not my wheelhouse, so I'm trying to build my understanding. You talked about federally designated structures. What unintended consequences do you feel this bill, with the amendments, will have on those federally designated structures?
You're recognized.
Through the chair, thank you, Senator, for your question. Yes, the federally designated structures are designated either individually or as a district. Most of them are districts in our city because there are so many. And so this bill makes no mention of local preservation boards, as an example, which is certified local government is allowed to have local preservation boards. But in addition, with the nationally designated sites, it says that if you're on the coastal construction line, you're only exempt if you were on the National Register before January 1st, 2000. Okay, so what that means is that history stops there, and everything designated in our town after that, for example, the Faena District, which many of you know about, that the Collins Waterfront National Register District was designated in 2011. It's also locally protected. Under this bill, it's unsafe, non-conforming. There we go. So we just can't stand for that. Also, we have the Fontainebleau District as an example. The Fontainebleau was individually designated at one point, so that's exempt. Next door, the Eden Rock is locally designated, and so that is now non-conforming. So as you could see, the patchwork, the arbitrariness, the punitive nature of seeming to target certain places over others, even the idea of the coastal construction line, which doesn't go all the way around the state. So how could you say, oh, well, if you're on the coastal construction line, then you can't have preservation, but Key West is exempt because they don't have a CCL, and nor do many other places. So again, this needs more work. I know this is a quick meeting. We're not trying to take your time, but we hope to work with all of you and the sponsors to hone it in, to focus on unsafe structures ordered to be demolished, which we all agree, and even today, that's possible without this law.
Madam Chair?
Yes, follow up.
Thank you. So as I'm listening at you, we know that no bill is a perfect bill. We continue to work on them. So the way you're understanding this, if we approve this bill, those places that were designated after 2001 or what you just described, the Eden Rock, they would all have to be closed down?
You recognize, Daniel.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of that.
I said you just talked about the Eden Rock and different structures. So the way you're understanding this bill, if this bill passes, all of those places will have to be closed down.
Sorry, through the chair, thank you, and thank you, Senator, for the question. That is a great question that we don't know. We don't know the answer. Obviously, if the state passes a bill saying the Eden Rock and all our hotels are unsafe, it could lead to unintended consequences being shut down. But more importantly, the federal government, through their grant programs and certified local governments, they give funding for disaster relief, for preservation. All of that could be at risk if the National Register is cut off at the year 2000, or if local control is preempted to such a degree as we think the current language allows.
Thank you.
Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Ciraldo, great to see you again. Like Senator Jones, both Senator Jones and I represent the area of Miami Beach, and we are very concerned and understand that Miami Beach is a very unique area, very big on their preservation and also very big on resiliency. So I think we're trying to find a way to help, but not necessarily making exceptions. I mean, there is a huge focus now on recertification of buildings as a standard, especially after what happened at Champlain Towers. A lot of these historic buildings are around Champlain Towers where that happened. And I'm sort of wondering where the mindset is. Do you feel that maybe historic buildings should conform to other safety standards?
You recognize.
Through the chair, thank you. And thank you, Senator, for your question and constant communication. We really value that. Yes, that's a great question. We have a process, whether you're historic or not, that starts at the 40-year certification. Unfortunately, Champlain was 39 years old, was not a historic building, and we know there were building code issues in the 80s, and that did have a horrible consequence. We actually believe that the recertification and the preservation and investment in our existing affordable housing and resorts are going to lead to safety, are going to lead to that resiliency that we need to keep our economy going and our people safe. And that is absolutely our priority. We know that a building collapse in our city, in Miami Beach, would be devastating not just for our economy, but for the state's tourism as well.
A follow-up question?
One more question, yes. Do you think that the preservation boards should supersede local authority and current guidelines?
You recognize.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Senator, for the question. Absolutely, they should not, and there's also been some misinformation that the boards are going rogue. These boards are all appointed by the elected officials. They have very stringent standards that follow the National Preservation Act requirements, and there are opportunities for property owner engagement throughout the process. So we think that, having a focus on keeping buildings maintained and operating is a benefit to all of us. It's not Republican or Democrat. It's a Florida thing and probably an American thing. These buildings don't have voices. We are their voice, and we hope that you will all respect that and continue working to amend that, just that minor clarification, which will avoid unintended consequences.
Great, thank you. Okay, members.